And there's one person who hasn't been mentioned, and I think she's feeling a little bit sad about it, but Michelle has come all the way from New Zealand, and no one has mentioned Michelle from New Zealand. So, on behalf of the class of the 90s, thank you for allowing a bunch of delinquents to feel like a younger bunch of delinquents. We had a great fun today. We turned out, we weren't sure what we were going to expect, but it didn't take us long really to find out what we did expect. And we'll come back to that in a moment. But Nick, you talked about all the victories you had in the 80s and everything else. You didn't talk about the bad haircuts. You didn't talk about the dodgy facial hair. But the 90s ushered in the clean cut, the techno kids. We came along and we had a vision. Not too many other clubs in Denmark had the same vision as us. But still, we turned up, we had 12 players, sometimes. A lot of the other Danish rugby clubs were getting a lot more players. We didn't understand why. Now we understand, because IHG had an embargo against the Exiles. Thank you, Nick, and thank you for the 80s. But anyway, with the bad haircuts from Noel, the Nicks, Dave Greenleys, and all these guys, you know, we came forward. And the 90s was a very, very different time. It was very feast to famine. We started off in the 90s, and you know, we had maybe 10 or 12 players when we started off. And we looked around and we thought, we can't keep going on and turning around and with 10 or 12 players. We need a strategy, we need a plan. And someone came along and said, well, let's recruit. So that's a bloody good plan. How do we recruit? Well, let's go out and find people. Well, that's recruitment is good. So Friday nights, if you were an Exile player, your plan was go out and find someone to play rugby the next morning. So off we went and we said, okay, we can do that. We can find people to play rugby. Is there any criteria we need? Yes, there must be a size 10 shoe. So, well, because we only had 2 spares of size 10s. Find them and take them in. And funnily enough, we got by. We came through and we found people, and sort of 93, 94, we really struggled. We struggled bad. And we spoke with another rugby club called Comet, and I think we spoke about, it was mentioned earlier on. And we had a meeting with Comet, and we said, should we amalgamate? Should the Exiles and should Comet rugby clubs amalgamate? And we had several discussions about this over a period of time because both of our clubs were struggling. But at this time, things started to change in Copenhagen. The global economy started to pick up a little bit. We had aviation companies coming in, we had oil companies coming in, we had dodgy finance companies coming in. I'm not going to mention, I won't mention which of those I worked for. And at the same time, we sort of looked around and we thought, we're becoming the poster boys of Danish rugby. We did advertisements for Tele Denmark. We were on the big billboards that you see out there. We were on there. We did those. And then we became the first of the reality TV. Before all this other things, let me say in the 90s, the Exiles 3 times were on television. And not just a little clip, we had our own show. It started off with The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and I'm sure a few people remember that one. And then it moved on. And I think it was one about Lungbu, and there was one about something else, and there's things that you wouldn't show your parents. But we were the reality TV kids. And the numbers started picking up. So we stopped talking to Comet. Comet folded. It was unfortunate. But we started becoming better. We were coming up and we had maybe 7 or 8 people going to training. All of a sudden we had 12 or 13 people coming to training. All of a sudden we had clipboards. We had flip charts. We had strategy. We still didn't win. But we were getting better. We had more numbers. We were picking up the IHG of the 80s. That was all gone. We had forgotten all the 80s guys. We weren't associated with them. But then we got a second team. And then the ladies team started. Jennifer, I think, started that back at the very end of the 90s, and well done to Jennifer for that. We used to come up to Luntofte in a yellow van. And to a lot of people here, you don't understand the significance of a yellow van. But if that yellow van wasn't around, I would say this club wouldn't be around. That yellow van was the big difference. And suddenly we couldn't fit in that yellow van anymore.
19 people we had.
John, we had so many more. But my introduction to the Exiles, I think, was very much like most other people's. I turned up in the John Bull one night. I went for a beer. Some guy came along and said, "My name's James Brown. Let's have a chat." He started talking to me. I think it was about the Five Nations. Actually, I have no idea what the man said. But for an hour and a half, I talked to Jim Brown. And I gave him, I think, my address. The next morning, there was a bang on the door. Steve Hewitt and Gary Cummins were standing outside. I was put in the back of this yellow van and I was whisked away. This black van, this yellow van, there was no windows on it. So I was put in the back van, it was dark, and all I could hear was this voice in the dark going, "Do you know who these people are? Do you know where they're taking us?" At that stage I thought, Scandinavia, it's a wonderful place. But that was my introduction to the Exiles, and that was so much like everyone else's here. You know, in those days you were allowed to put people in the back of vans. Unlike Nick, I'm not going to tell any stories in great depth, but there are some things that, I thought the 90s and the Exiles, it was a tremendous time. It was great to be here, and it was great to be part of this club at that point in time. And I have a couple of memories, and these are just a few of what I still think about today, and what I still think what the Exiles means to me. And we started off in the yellow van and Matt King. As I said, without them, I don't know if we would still be here today. Charlie Scott and the John Bull. Hey. Simon Smith and that kick against Fredericksburg. Has Simon told you about that story yet? Davy Dunlop, several wives, Danish emigration. Talk to Davy about that story. It's worth 5 minutes of your life, believe me. Neil Clifford and the 100% record. We had two Tims. We had a slug and we had a clipboard. And they're part of that, and they're part of the fabric of this club. Singing in the rain. Naked. In a fountain. In East Germany. Live on Russian TV. The silent hokey cokey. In a jazz club in Prague. Interactive sleaze and filth. It was the start of the internet age, so I think we just fit it in there just good. Percy Hannah. Aussie Phil, Yorkshire Phil, Mick Duffy. Rest in peace, guys. Yeehaw. Fizzbuzz. 45 people. One guy falling over, and his wife on tour taking him home. Dave, are you here? 3 Danish guys, 1 passport, And one of my proudest moments of it all was sometime late in the 90s. 8 Irish players out of 15 on an Exiles team. It was wonderful. Those were glorious years, chaps. And I think when I stood in that field today, a lot of memories came back. And I had a lump in my throat walking off. It was 20 years ago, this month, that I stopped playing for the Exiles. But I've never forgotten playing for the Exiles. And I had a few words to say for the present Exiles today, and it was how gracious and good you are and all that. And I did have a tear in my eye starting that match today, and I thought, all these memories came back. But after about 30 seconds of the match, I had bloody tears in my eyes. What was that all about? You know, it's a social thing. we were sore, and all us old boys, maybe we averaged about 50 years of age in that field today, but we were sore. But you're a bloody good team. You really, really are. And thank you for that. And I think you guys are going to do really, really well as a team. You're a fabulous team. So, finally, Mr. President, club captain, committee members, and fellow Exiles, thank you for today. Thank you for making this class of 1990 feel good again. It was really good. We feel really proud. We feel really emotional out there. Thank you.